Continuing to track the breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ, our Jason Lock-on-4 confirms the Titans and the Falcons have come to terms on a deal that will send all-pro wide receiver Julio Jones to Tennessee. That comes in exchange for a 2022 second-round pick. Atlanta will also get Tennessee's 2023 fourth-rounder. Jones is heading into year 11 of his illustrious career, trailing only Jerry Rice in receiving yards through 10 seasons. Joined now by two of our very best, CBS senior NFL writer Jonathan Jones, alongside host of the Pick Six podcast, Will Brinson. Gentlemen, welcome aboard for this news. Before we dig into it all, just your general reaction to this all-pro on the move. Will, the first thought that comes to mind is what?
Yeah, I think the Titans are now the strongest, scariest skill position group in the NFL with A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, and Derrick Henry. Those are some certified grown adult men lining up on that side of the ball for Tennessee. It was a much-needed move by the Titans, I thought, because when you look at their depth chart, they lose Corey Davis this offseason, they lose Jonnu Smith. They added Josh Reynolds via free agency, but he was their number 2, and it gets really, really thin after that. And so if you're going to put all of that on A.J. Brown, it's asking a lot from a young receiver. Now with Julio there, they have a ton, just a ton of height, a ton of physicality on their offense, both at running back and wide receiver, and a very dangerous offense for the Falcons. I just sort of wonder what the direction is. You triple down on Matt Ryan after you sign him to, you renegotiate his contract, draft Kyle Pitts, and then you trade Julio Jones. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me there.
Yeah, he goes to the Titans, and it makes sense because they've been the front runners now for more than a week. And we've known really for 2 weeks that it was going to be at least a second-round pick that a team could have Julio Jones for. So the news that it was a 2 plus something, which ultimately winds up being a 5 when you swap 4th and 6th, that's what one executive 2 weeks ago told me he expected. And what do you know? Here it is. And so I agree with everything that Will said in regards to the Tennessee Titans being one of the most formidable skill position groups in the entire NFL. Good luck with it. If the game were played 7-on-7, the Titans would probably go 20-0. And then for the Falcons, yeah, they do believe that Matt Ryan has a little bit left in the tank. I think that they understand, okay, we had to restructure him. No one was going to take on his contract this past season. In fact, it would have cost the Falcons money to get rid of Matt Ryan, so they had to restructure him with those sort of parameters in place. And they don't want to kick the can down the road, but they can restructure Matt Ryan again next year and maybe deal him or move on from him at that point. But obviously Kyle Pitts, as much as Atlanta wants to say, is not a Julio Jones replacement. They knew that this day was coming, and when you heard Julio Jones say, "I'm out of there," that was less about his disdain for Atlanta or the organization, and it was just more simply that he understood that the team was always going to deal him, and it was just a matter of time. They could have done it before June 1st and post-dated it. Instead, it happens this week as we had expected at the start of last week that it would happen. It happens Sunday morning, and hopefully they're going to get this finalized here by Monday night.
As Pete Prisco outlined earlier on HQ, Tennessee's success will likely once again be contingent on that pass rush and not just the addition of Jones to this already high-powered offense. But with the addition of Jones, we got to rework some of the numbers here, guys. JJ, heading into this season, are they now favorites in the division? Coming into Sunday, slight edge went to the Colts by the numbers, courtesy of our friends at William Hill, those numbers being recrunched. But in your eyes, is Tennessee now the team to beat in the division?
I'm surprised that the Colts were the favorites, just because the last time that we saw the starting quarterback of the Colts, he was getting benched.
Fair enough.
Several games too late. So, listen, I think that a change of scenery is going to be very good for Carson Wentz, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he's going to return to his near MVP form from several years ago. That was the same year, 2017, that Todd Gurley was the Offensive Player of the Year. So it's been a while, and I'm not willing to give that to Carson Wentz and the Indianapolis Colts. For me, it's one of the most consistent teams in the NFL. And yes, they did lose Arthur Smith, and that's going to be a difficult hole for them to fill. We understand that, but the system is in place. We know what Ryan Tannehill does off of play action. Derrick Henry coming off a 2,000-yard season. Yeah, they lost Jonnu Smith, but Julio Jones is really good. He's a really good player, and yeah, he's battled injuries. And when you talk about this sort of horse of a man who is 6'3" and 215, 225 pounds, whatever he is, that runs the way that he does, sometimes the car is going to break down. And last year, it happened more often than it had in previous years. Okay, he's 32 years old. Okay, he missed half the season last year. This guy can absolutely still get it done. And the fact that it cost the Tennessee Titans a second-round pick when your second-round pick next year probably has a 30 to 35% shot of hitting and has about a 1% shot of ever being as good as Julio Jones. This is a fantastic deal, I believe, for the Tennessee Titans. And yeah, they have to eat all of his salary. So what? Go out there. This is your championship window. You've been knocking on the door. Go ahead and get him to get over the hump.
The thing about the Colts that not enough people talk about, and this is very much on brand for me, but 2020 Phillip Rivers is basically, statistically, when you look at it, is almost it's better than any season Carson Wentz has ever had in his career because he hadn't been healthy enough to play 16 games and achieve those statistics. So what I'm saying is the Colts were headed for a drop-off at quarterback no matter how Carson Wentz plays. He's not going to come in and be MVP level. And so I didn't understand why the Colts were favored either. I'd been saying on the podcast for weeks and weeks and weeks that if Julio Jones went to the Titans, even though a wide receiver probably shouldn't shift the odds this dramatically, that Tennessee would in fact be the division favorite once that deal took place, because it's just sort of the natural reaction. When you have a situation where the two teams are very close, the Titans and the Colts. Probably a coin flip in Vegas's eyes as to who wins the division. Come down to injuries, a little bit of luck. But when you add Julio Jones, you're going to see an influx of people trying to bet on the Titans immediately. And I think that's a smart move if you can find them at plus money. I would anticipate that when our pals at William Hill put the numbers back up, that we see Tennessee as a maybe minus 120 and the Colts probably at plus 110, plus 115, plus 120, something in that range. I don't know that Tennessee's win total will move dramatically. Maybe a half a game. And I'm not even saying that Julio is worth a half a game. It's just that's how the odds will be shifted based on a player of this name value and this talent moving to a different team in a different conference.
In line with that thinking that both of you gentlemen just outlined there, I'm sure there's a lot of fans who are already holding Tennessee tickets with big smiles on their faces this afternoon. As this news comes down, Will Brinson is a party of one raising his hand on that one. I do want to kind of zig when they zag here a little bit, because there are 32 quarterbacks, starting quarterbacks that is, in the NFL who would welcome Julio Jones with open arms. He is a monster, still doing things that other guys simply cannot do because of his physical gifts. But 481 attempts a year ago, 17th in the league for Ryan Tannehill in passing attempts. This is a run-based offense behind the services of Derrick Henry. Do you see any increased pressure here, Will, on Ryan Tannehill to maybe get outside of himself a little bit and extend that passing game away from just the play action pass because of this big name and big body that's now flanking him outside? Do you think that this maybe increases a bit of pressure on Tannehill?
I don't know that it increases the pressure on Ryan Tannehill, Joe, but I do think that Todd Downing's got a lot of pressure on him now because Arthur Smith, of course, there's a little weird, incestuous swapping going on here. Arthur Smith, the former offensive coordinator in Tennessee, leaves, becomes the head coach in Atlanta, and then sends Julio back to his old team. I think the guys who are stepping up and taking over for Arthur Smith are going to have a little bit of pressure on them, because now there's no built-in excuse of, they only had A.J. Brown and really nothing else in the passing game. You can't expect Ryan Tannehill to have, these monster stats. I think what they'll probably try and do with Julio is a little bit, what they do with A.J. Brown, which is you have these deep play action shots, and good luck covering both of those guys on those same vertical stems. I mean, seriously, good luck, because those guys getting deep are going to be a problem for secondaries. But I think you can also really set both of these guys up underneath, get them in space right across the line of scrimmage, and let them work on yards after the catch, because both guys are just immensely talented and very difficult to bring down, explosive speed, even Julio at his age. And when you look at the combination of size and speed, there's only 4 or 5 receivers in the last 10 or 15 years who have come into the NFL with those sort of combine measurables, like A.J. Brown, like Julio Jones, DK Metcalf can be slotted in the group. But I mean, these are big boy receivers with tons of speed.
Yeah, I look at Ryan Tannehill, and obviously the pressure is on, and he wants to be more than just that play-action quarterback. And yeah, Derrick Henry right now in the prime of his career, getting the job done. But I look at Tannehill's sort of advanced numbers, and I see that his time to throw was around Drew Brees' last year, which indicates, of course, that he was getting the ball out quickly, 2.6 seconds from snap to throw. But in comparison to Brees, who was 2.66, what he was able to do was stretch the field just a little bit more. So Tannehill is not afraid to take some shots, even though he's getting the ball out of his hand much quicker than a lot of quarterbacks. And now you have a guy on the outside. And listen, Tannehill's also a pretty accurate passer. He was one of the more aggressive quarterbacks last season. So the fact that he gets the ball out quickly, he throws the football a little bit more down the field than you would expect, considering how quickly he gets the ball out and how accurately he throws the football in aggressive and tight windows. I think this is a really good deal for Julio, a guy who, yeah, he can take the top off the coverage. I think that he still has a couple of those in him a game if he really, really wants to. But you also have to understand that, hey, it's a 17 game season now, and you have to take care of him. And the oil probably has to be changed on him once every 1,500 or so miles instead of 3,000 or 4,000. So I don't know that he's going to be that guy that you just chuck it up at 55 yards down the field and let him go get it anymore. But if you want to go a deep slant, if you want to hit him on the outside the numbers, this is a fantastic pairing with Ryan Tannehill, who, again, one of the most accurate and aggressive throwers of the football in the NFL.
Worth pointing out, by the way, our pals at William Hill have, in fact, updated the odds. The Titans now the favorites. I don't get to be right this quickly, this often, so I'm going to take a chance to pat myself on the back. But the Titans plus 105, and the Colts moved back to plus 110. So roughly in that same range. I still, by the way, like Tennessee as a nice bet at plus money. I liked them before. Certainly you prefer the value there at plus 120 or whatever they were, but still liked them at plus 105 when we have this huge unknown when it comes to Carson Wentz.
It is sure going to be fun to watch it all play out each and every Sunday with our guys, Will Brinson and Jonathan Jones. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, here's a little bit more movement with the movement of one Julio Jones. The Tennessee win total was 9.5 wins, and that man right there is worth 0.6 victories, according to our friends at William Hill. That number bumping to 10.1, as do the playoff percentages and slightly Super Bowl hopes for the Tennessee Titans.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.